All right, everyone, fourth and final video in the variables and data types lesson. We're on arrays now, and I'm actually going to blow your mind right now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm going to save the file, and we're not going to put it back in. All right, so we start out having this knowledge of numbers, letters, or strings, and variables. So let's create a variable and give it, chicken, like you've seen before, except I didn't spell it right. So if you're ever typing while you're talking, especially if you're saying something that's not what you're typing, it's actually very difficult. So try it sometime. Anyway, so I have my variable here, and I assign the value of chicken, right? So just as a review, this is the name of our variable var, and we're assigning it the value of the string chicken with our assignment operator, and we got the semicolon on the end. All right, so an array is a third data type. So we have this numbers data type, and that was something like 1 or 5, and then of course the strings, and now we have arrays. So the way we denote an array in PHP is with the word array. I bet you couldn't have guessed that. Not just array, but then an open and a close parenthesis. So just if you don't know, the word for a single one of these is a parenthesis, ends with SIS. And then if you're talking about multiple, it's parentheses with an SES. I get them completely mixed up all the time, so don't hate me for that. So like we saw the numbers, right? PHP knows what a number is just because it's a digit, it's a bunch of digits. Maybe it has a decimal, maybe it has a minus sign, but they're just digits, right? And then it knows what a string is because they're encased in quotation marks. And it knows what an array is because it has the word array followed by 2 parentheses, and inside of the parentheses is the contents of this array. But we haven't talked about what an array is. So an array essentially is just going to be a list of other data. So we can have different types of data in our arrays. We can have numbers, we can have letters, we can put variables in our arrays because those variables just point back to other data types. And in the future, when we get into objects, we will find that arrays can really hold anything. In fact, arrays can even hold other arrays. So to show you an example, I'm going to do this. It's going to say create an array, and inside of that array put a 5. All right, and so down here I'm going to say echo var. All right, so what happens now? So basically I told you an array is a list of data, right? And so inside of this list I just have a 5. So think about it as a list with just one element. That's exactly what it is. So I said echo var, right? So we expect it to echo out or print out to the screen whatever the value of this array is. So let's save that and go over here. And let's go to the arrays, and I have arrays.php right here. You can see that something unexpected happened. Of course, I knew that was going to happen. But we printed out the word array, and we didn't really expect that for a couple of reasons. First of all, this is not a string that says array, right? And second of all, that's not capitalized. We didn't get any kind of notice here, so what is going on? So the way PHP works, the PHP gods decided this, but when you echo out some data that happens to be an array, it will just say array. So let's go to view page source, and we'll see that's there. So there's a second tool we have to use in order to print out the contents of an array, not just the word array. So let's change this to the word print _ R. And so what this means is print to the screen, just like echo, and this _R means recursive. And we haven't talked about recursive, what recursion means yet, but this means it will print out the values of the array instead of just the word array. Now, a little caveat to this is that we need to put everything that we're going to print out inside of these parentheses. parentheses. So this var is the array, right? And so that's what's going to be recursively printed out. So let's save that and go back here, and I'm going to hit an F5, and now we get a few more things. Instead of just array, it's printing out the contents of that array. And we see this 0 in squared brackets, and then an arrow, which is just that equal and greater than sign, and then a 5. And that 5 is actually what we put in the array, right? So let's put a few more things in there. Let's say 5, 4, 3, 2. Let's do my commas right. 1. If you haven't realized it by now, the white space in PHP is not important. I could have left these like this, and it would be just fine. But I like to have a lot of space in my programs just so they're more readable, especially in these lessons. So let's go ahead and save that. And what do you think this is going to print out? So I added these 5 elements to the array, and when I tab over here, I get those 5 elements back. Now there's something important I want to mention that you probably just glanced over, but it is important. And notice that all of these values are in the same order that I put them in. The 5 came first, the 4, the 3, then the 2, then the 1. So if we go here, we'll see they're in that order. That's important because it means that arrays have a specified order. The elements in the array are ordered. Okay, so another thing you should have noticed is that it's counting 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, why do you think that is? Let's go back here and let's change these numbers to a different data type. Let's change them to strings, okay? So we'll have chicken, egg. Okay, let's just do 2 things. Well, let's do 3 things. Buffalo. Buffalo is a good word. Okay, so we have 3 strings inside this array, and now when I go here and hit refresh, it's just as you expect. We have the string chicken, the string egg, and the string buffalo, and it still has this ordering 0, 1, 2. Now, what these are actually called, the 0, the 1, and the 2, that is called the key, and the value on this side is actually called the value. So you can say that a key points to a value. So in PHP, you can have keys not as just numbers in this sequential order, but you can have them be whatever you want. So if I go back here, I can change the key for chicken to 1 instead of 0. Remember how it started at 0? In computer science, you always start counting at 0. So this automatic keying that happened started at 0. But say I really wanted to start at 1, so I can put this 1 and then that funny arrow points to the chicken. So let's save that and go back. Now you can see we started here at 1 because that's the key. So I'll go back here. I don't have to go in order. I could say, you know, really this was 0 and this was a -1. Now remember I said anything can be the key to an array. So let's go back here, and you see that's exactly what I had. Now keep in mind this is still in the same order that I put it in. The value of the key did not change anything because I didn't change the order of the array. Alright guys, we're almost home. Let's change a few more things here. First I want to format this a little nicer. Say we had a long array. You know, it could very quickly get to the end of this line. It would wrap around, it would look ugly. So if we put a new line after the open parenthesis, and we put a new line after each comma, in Sublime they'll line up very nice. And then the last one, we go back to be flush with this opening statement here. So this is all of the data in the array, and that looks very nice. So I'm going to change this a little bit. First of all, let's change this to person. So because of the power of these arrays, we can really say like this data refers to an entire person. So let's say name, and I'll just put my name here, Trevor, and then maybe occupation, and I'll say PHP God, and then we can say something like height. I'm a tall person, so I am 6 feet and 5 inches. All right, so there's some information about me, and I saved it in this variable called person. So if we just print that out, let's save that and print it out, and you'll see that all of that stuff got put in there just as we expect. All right, so say we want to get out not everything, but just one value. So I'm going to get rid of this print R statement because remember we use print R to print out all the contents of an array. Say we don't want to print all the contents, but just some of the contents. So I'm going to say echo again. And we have our data, but we need to get into one of these keys because remember a key points to a value. So I want to print out my occupation. So what we have there is echo and then whatever this is. All right, so person is this array variable. And then we're using these square brackets to index into the array. And we're giving it this string as a key. Now PHP looks at that string and it goes and looks in the array and it finds the key that matches that, and then it will return this value that is associated with that key. So let's save this and go back here, and now you'll just see we got PHP God with nothing else there. Okay, so we see how we can get at the value that is keyed by occupation here. So a cool thing we can do is reassign that value. So if I say person and then index occupation, we can use the assignment operator to give it a different value. So let's say I change my mind and I want to be a carpenter. So the assignment operator is here, so that means the thing on the left, the thing on the left, thank you, gets the value of the thing on the right. So the thing on the left is this array with the occupation key, and so that value becomes carpenter. So if I print that out now, of course I'm going to get carpenter. Now one more cool thing we can do in PHP is add something to the end of an array. And the way this works is a square bracket, set of square brackets with nothing inside. And that just says add something to the end of the array and automatically key it. Now the way automatic keying works, as you saw, is it just goes in order of the integers, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. So if we don't have any integer keys yet, which we don't, we just have name, occupation, and height, and we reassign occupation here, this just says, okay, add the next integer, which is a 0, the first integer, and give it the value, the final value, which is our string. So one more key there, and we'll print it out to show you how that works. Print our person. And we'll print that out, and you'll see here that we got this 0 key at the end for final value. Alright, so we've gone over most of the important stuff about arrays. The last thing I want to talk about is that arrays are great because PHP has a lot of built-in functionality that works with arrays. So let's go over to our browser and say, here's the PHP manual on arrays. So if you go to this URL, or if you just probably search for arrays or something, array functions, you can find it. But here we go. There is just a bunch of stuff you can do with arrays. Look at all that stuff. I'm not going to go over any of them right now, but we'll probably use several of them in the future. So if you see one that we use and you don't know what it does, remember you can just type in php.net and then say, oh, what does array map do? So array map, and you'll get right to the documentation for that function. So the last thing is, remember at the beginning how I got rid of this thing here? The reason I did that is because it's not needed. It's only needed if you plan to have something after it. But if you don't plan to have anything after it, it's best to leave it off. Now, why is it best to leave it off? Here's a reason. Because a lot of times you might have an extra bit of white space at the end of your file. Now, the way this looks is PHP comes in and it does its thing, and then PHP closes off, and then everything else after that is just printed out. But sometimes you don't. It's very important to not have that extra white space printed out at the end. So that's why from now on, if I just have PHP running, I'm going to leave off the closing tag. All right, that's it for now, and that's it for this entire lesson. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next.